First of all, I'm so honored to be here, and my name is Michelle Pippin. I'm the founder of Women Who Wow. We are the premier coaching and mentoring platform for the seriously driven woman entrepreneurs. So the women who don't want to settle, refuse to settle, and also refuse to compromise and want to create success on their own terms. We began, I know it sounds like super crazy nowadays, but we began just a couple years ago, and we started building by print invite only. Like literally, you either got a print invite in the mail and were invited to pay us to attend a live meeting, which we did monthly back then, or you didn't. And that's the only way that that you could come into Women Who Wow. And I did this because I just didn't want to create another organization like every other organization out there, right, for women entrepreneurs. I wanted Women Who Wow to be different. And so I laid the foundation for the culture doing that. And I'm so proud that we now have members in every state, a handful, like maybe 8 or 9 countries. And our members are people who are really amazing at what they do. They're true experts, and they're attorneys and surgeons and doctors and coaches and speakers and veterinarians and authors. And so we're not industry specific, but what unites us really is our drive. When I first started my entrepreneurial journey, my daughter had just been born. I was married and still married to a public school teacher, and I didn't have any like plan B. Like 20 years ago, you heard like rumors of people who work from home, but you didn't know anybody personally, right? Like, so this is like back when the envelope licking scams were out, and you just like heard rumors. But I figured, I can do secretarial work, like I could do something from home. And I took $50, $32 of that went to stamps, because back then not everybody used email. Forget like a website or social media, like that didn't exist. And I mailed out a letter to 100 people who might know my name or like my husband's name or my parents' name or his parents' name, and basically said, I'll be like an at-home secretary. I'll do whatever I can do, on the computer or by fax or email did exist, but not everybody used it. So that's how I began. And to anybody who has this urge or desire to make money on their own terms or make money their own way, or work from home for any reason, like I just really encourage you not to get sucked into thinking you've got to pay a bunch of money and spend a bunch of money to make money. That's a total lie that a lot of people tell about business. But so that's how I began. And frankly, I didn't even think I was in business for like the first year. I made $63,000 that year. And I'll never forget it, because people talk about a business, but I live in a very rural town and they don't have like business license unless you're a contractor, like a general contractor, or a doctor or something. And so I just considered myself a woman like cobbling together an income from home, right? I never even thought about the fact that I was in business. But it turns out with that $50, I'll trade $50 for $63,000 any day of the week, right? All day, every day. I sent them out and I didn't wait for a response. And I never recommend waiting for a response. I think that's a huge part of business owners, where they are waiting always, right? And I really desire to be, I want the ball in my court all the time. So what I did, actually, I didn't send all 100 letters out at a time. I instinctively knew that I would have to follow up, right? Like it wasn't like I mailed the letters and waited for the cash to roll in. I mailed about 10 at a time. So I mailed 10, and then that same week I followed up on those 10 and mailed another 10, and then I followed up. And I think that's critical in marketing and selling. Like we can't just expect, sometimes we put something out there and it goes rogue and like people just throw money at us, right? Like those are good days. But in general, you should count on putting it out there and treating these business relationships like real relationships, and viewing that first sales email or webinar or whatever you're doing as the beginning of a conversation, and plan to follow up. And so every week it was 10. And then I follow up with the 10 I mailed last week and send 10 more. And, I basically was just very service oriented, right? Like a service business is the easiest business to get started, right? And you just need a little bit of sweat equity and hustle. And I just said, like, what do you have going on? And for some people, I did everything that was like, if it was like barely legal, I did it for money. So I wrote resumes for people. I'm a good writer, right? So I'd write resumes for people. I typed up water reports for U.S. embassies overseas. Side note, if you're ever traveling to a U.S. embassy overseas, don't drink the water, right? I've typed up many of those water reports from back in the day. It's not worth the risk. But then I also typed up dispositions for divorce dispositions for couples divorcing. So I did anything and everything that I could do from home. It was really what I call an anything for money tour back in the day. Business is a lot more fun and actually a lot more profitable and a lot less hectic when you are well branded, right? Like when you know who you are in your market, and when you know who you are and you're well branded, you can charge the fees that you know that you're worth, and you work with better people, they get better results. It's a beautiful thing. However, I don't believe brands are created like in some conference room with a branding expert, right? Like I view a brand as, it's sort of like the wake behind a boat, right? Like, so you drive your boat in the water and there's a wake that you leave behind. That's what a real brand is. You don't really choose your brand, right? Your brand is like what's left behind when you go into the market and you do you. And so how I did that was, the first year I was an at-home secretary. I literally called myself an at-home secretary because the term virtual assistant had not been created. So after that, I had an HR degree. I partnered with a person who had HR, human resource experience. I ran an HR business for a little while, and I found out that I really loved the marketing and selling of it, and I hated delivering the work, right? Like I hated dotting the I's and all of that. And I was young, and by that time I had 3 kids, and I just knew that I had this idea to do coaching, right? And at this point I had 2 successful companies, and I remember thinking if I just put my back against the wall, right? Like I'm a warrior. So if I just put my back against the wall, I'll figure out how to make money coaching. And this is, again, back when not everybody knew what coaching was, right? Like a coach was like a football coach or a tennis coach. And so I started just putting myself out there as a business coach and talking to other business owners. And I branded myself as the no BS coach, right? Because what I called out was all the BS in the industry, all the lies that people believe about business, like you got to spend money to make money, or you got to get your name out there. And I started getting your name out there is a fool's goal, right? Like, how are you ever going to know if your name is out there enough? It's all these different things. My thought was, forget getting your name out there. That's about your ego. If you want to put your money in your bank account, you better get your clients in here, right? Where you get paid. And so I just started I started calling out these business truths that weren't true for me, right? I've never attended a networking meeting. I probably wouldn't do my brand any favors attending a networking meeting because I'm not into small talk. I tell the truth, and I'm very much an introvert. But I started little by little realizing that my brand was hard work, hustle, and truth, right? I wouldn't have chosen that brand. I'm too smart. It doesn't sell as easily as fluff and feel good stuff, right? But I started just allowing my work to create a brand as I continually did business. And I find that a lot of business owners, they try to brand first and they pay for that, right? They pay somebody to help them create a brand, and then they try to live into that brand. And a lot of times this is happening without paying clients. And so my advice is to just, start out there, do your best work, and allow your brand to build behind you, and think, what, as much as smart as it would have been for me to build a much fluffier, sexier brand than hard work, hustle, and truth. I mean, I'm glad that I didn't, right? The brand built behind me, and it propped me up, and I stood taller and taller with each paying client. So my first one was, the name was Virtual Business Solutions, right? Which is a fancy word for I did at-home secretarial work, right? The anything for money tour. Not a lot to say about that. I did waste $18 on business cards because at the time I thought that I'd go to a networking event, but at the time, the networking events would charge money. And I'll never forget one I wanted to do, which was $19. And I didn't have $19 or a babysitter. So the business cards never went anywhere. But that was Virtual Business Solutions. And then with the partner, I created HR Advisors. And essentially what we did was we sold employee manuals and like kind of stay out of court kind of stuff for small business owners who were creating, they were hiring for the first time. They had maybe, 1 to 4, maybe 5 employees, but they were getting into areas where they needed that HR expertise. So Women Who Wow for a while was just a business name, right? Like it was not the online platform that it is today. It wasn't international. Like it was just like what you wrote a check to if you worked with me. But after HR Advisors, I basically sold business consulting and copywriting, right? And so I found that if you can write, you will never go hungry. It's very much like people back then, and same is true today. If you're willing to write copy for people, particularly if you can write copy that actually moves the needle and sells people on a product or taking a certain action, then you'll always make money. And so that's what I did for many years. I was a coach, consultant, copywriter. And I all the while I evolved, right? So I began sort of writing copy. I had trained under the business greats. Most of them are not with us any longer, but I really trained under the business greats of direct response copywriting. And when I began doing that, like I started realizing that my copy, which I loved, right? My copy was being applied to like a bozo business strategy. And I didn't like it. And I also didn't love writing copy for everybody else, right? I wanted to write my own stuff, my own books, my own stuff, And so this kind of merged, and in the beginning, I started evolving. I'm like, okay, I don't love writing the copy, but I'm good at it, and that's what you'll pay for. So I want to do more of the strategy work. And so I said, okay, well, I stopped taking copywriting gigs unless I did the strategy. And I said, like, my copywriting is not for sale for another strategy. I have to be involved in that. And I started like just reworking what people thought they were paying me for. And before you knew it, copy became like a bonus. They were paying for a strategy. Then I removed the copy. I did that for a couple of years. And at a certain point, I just wanted more out of life. I wanted to have more impact and influence amongst women entrepreneurs. And I wasn't going to do that just working one-to-one. And so I first started having Women Who Wow events and intensives all over the country. And I all the while I was trying to figure out what Women Who Wow would be when it grew up, right? Like, would it be like chapter based, right? Like we'd have like Women Who Wow Dallas, Women Who Wow, Phoenix, like any of that. And I was like, no, this is way too much. I like a simple business. I live a simple life, right? I want to work from home. I want to do my own thing. I don't want to travel all the time. So that didn't appeal to me. And eventually I just settled, okay, Women Who Wow is going to be an online coaching and mentoring platform. And at that point, I knew that I wanted to start differently. And so just in my hometown, I started having monthly events. And this is when Women Who Wow was really born, right? About 4 years ago, I started having monthly events that people had to be invited by print invite, and they had to pay in order to come, right? And when that happened, I started realizing that I was onto something, because these were 4-hour little meetings. And within the first 6 months, we had people from 8 states driving in to be part of a Women Who Wow meeting. And I'm like, okay, I'm onto something, right? I'm totally onto something. And then we eventually phased out the live local events. We still have live events all over the country, a few a year for our members to get together. But I phased out those local ones, took it largely online, and that's where we are now. Our membership is definitely a multimedia membership, right? So right now, this is, what month are we? We're May 2020. And so the benefits will probably change, because right now, annual members get one-on-one time with me. They schedule it in. It's a 15-minute laser session. Everybody is shocked at what we get done in 15 minutes. In fact, a lot of our members say like 9 minutes in, like, all right, I got what I need. You go have some coffee before your next meeting, right? So one-on-one is definitely definitely part of it. But also we have something called the Entrepreneurial Espresso. And I have a book coming out by the same name in a couple of weeks. But Entrepreneurial Espresso is designed to get their day started, every day. And the Entrepreneurial Espresso comes with a journal prompt if you're into that sort of thing. But it just serves just like your morning espresso, just to kind of get your heart pumping, get you focused in. We have a weekly hustle challenge that goes out each and every week. I learned a long time ago that 52 weeks isn't that many weeks, right? So if we have several weeks that are like, we don't get a lot done, we're not taking new ground in our business, we're going to create a Groundhog Day experience. So the weekly hustle challenges are 20-minute challenges designed to help them take new ground in their business. We have e-coaching once a month. We have a new training once a week. We have a member marketing makeover. We take somebody's business and make it over. We have open Q&A the last Tuesday of the month. We have live events, obviously, a few times a year. And I'm trying to think of what else. We have content prompts. So we have 260 Entrepreneurial Espressos served up hot and fresh every morning. We have 260 content prompts that are delivered in their Wow Weekly, so that they're never without a message to talk to their people about. I'm big on having conversations with your market. Entrepreneurial Espresso really it's going to give 30 days of Entrepreneurial Espresso to the reader, right? But before it gets to that, it really starts to untangle my approach to business, right? And I've had people call it my twisted little approach to business, because I have zero interest in creating complex and complicated business with a bunch of employees. If that's your thing, fine, right? That's not my thing. I want a simple business and a simple life. And I learned, because I built this business, remember, when my kids were very small. Right now, as you and I are doing this interview, there's a lot of people forced to homeschool. I actually homeschooled by choice, right, for several years. And so I built my business, honest to God, in like 20-minute chunks of time. And so the Entrepreneurial Espresso, the first half of the book, is really how you can build your business your way, according to your preferences, in 20-minute chunks of time, and the importance of starting off your day early, getting the bulk of your messaging done before the world wakes up. And it really kind of lays the groundwork for you to start sipping the Entrepreneurial Espresso, right? So it's actually a 2-part book, and I'm so proud of it. Should be available the beginning of June, and it'll be on Amazon.com is where it'll be. It'll be print and digital. And I'm just so honored and excited to have people look at that and just kind of sample it, right? And the Entrepreneurial Espresso, as an aside, that was like a bonus of membership. Like, I just thunk it up one day and it turned out to be something that the members love and look forward to. And I do serve it up hot and fresh every morning. So if I wake up a little later, which might be as outrageous, 5:45 in the morning, right? I'm just an early riser. And so people will say, they'll get mad at me, my members, well, I looked for the Entrepreneurial Espresso at 5:47. It wasn't there. I'm like, well, forgive me. I slept in, the dog slept in, whatever. And so it's very much a great benefit to them, because they start every day strong. Also, if anybody wants to, you can message me at m.me/women who wow, WOMEN who wow, and let me know if you want to be on my list to get a book, and I'd be happy to shoot it over to you. So I just hate chaos, busy, complex, I really want to, I don't mind the hustle. I'm all about the hustle, right? But I want it to be an aligned hustle. I don't want to get to the end of this life and look back and think that I didn't do the important things, right? And so my kids now are grown. I mean, they're almost grown. So they're 21, 20, and 17. And so, I'm proud when I look back. We had a ton of muddy days where we literally played in the field in the mud, and we homeschooled. And the kids say we didn't homeschool, we really didn't do anything in homeschool, but they learned a lot. And when they went to school, they were fine. They knew everything they needed to know. But I just look back and I'm proud of the life I created. My marriage is strong and passionate, and that doesn't happen, without work and time and priority. And I just, for me, what's simple for me is living according to my own priorities, right? And definitely I had been through times when if you followed me for any amount of time or for, a few years around 2009, 2010, like that's when you would have thought like I was killing it, right? Like I had Gary Vaynerchuk speak at my events and I was traveling and stuff like that. But I was actually not living according to my priority, right? I was doing the things that I thought I had to do to get a bigger reach. And I don't regret it necessarily, but I don't advise doing that either, right? Like I don't advise doing a bunch of stuff now that you think you have to do and that you'll rest later, right? Like your business, you need to build it the way you want to maintain it. Same thing with kids, right? You want to raise your kids the way you want them to go, not like, well, I'll play around here and then I'll change it and get stricter later. It's not the way it works. And so I just want a simple life that is my own and that allows me to live entirely according to my priorities. Freedom is a huge thing to me. And I don't ever intend to be governed by chaos or busyness or, somebody else's priorities for me. I've always I had to work. I don't want to take away from that. I was then and am now married to a public school teacher. Like there's no family money on either side. I mean, we looked, we didn't take it for granted. We looked, there was nothing. And so when I started my business, I literally had tucked away $213 in savings, right? So that that's what we had set aside. And I took 50 of that to start my business. So I had to work, but I also love to work. I love what I do. And I've always loved just the pride of accomplishment and, tinkering with things. I've always loved that kind of thing. And so homeschooling for me, for anybody listening, I just want you to know, it was not something that I did in terms of, fit in around some hobby business. When I was homeschooling, I was already making 6 figures in my business, and I couldn't really afford to go back, backwards for that. And I can tell you that, one thing that you can bank on, I guess, is that a routine really helps. It's not so much what time you start or how they're dressed or any of the stuff people, worry about, but it's just having a routine is really helpful, because the kids then can, even at a young age, start initiating their own routine. And also, again, keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. Don't worry so much about the lesson plans. Really teach your kids, involve them in stuff. Anywhere I went, my kids came with me. I didn't have sitters. I didn't have any sitters. And so if I went to a funeral, they came with me. I went to the OBGYN, they had questions about that for a while. They came with me, right? I had 3 kids in tow wherever I went. And so your kids learn a lot based on just doing life with you. And a lot of people now, my friends that are asking me about homeschooling, they're like, oh, my kid who might be 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, they're only doing 2 hours of schoolwork. I feel like such a bad homeschool mom. I'm like, 2 hours is a lot, right? Frankly, and I'm, my hat's off to public school teachers and all that. I'm married to one, but 8 hours of schooling a day, there's a lot of wasted time there, a lot of it. And so don't try to replicate the school day, right? Just do the bare minimum and let them live life with you. And also, the cool thing about homeschooling is that they get to follow their own passions, right? Let them go deep or write about a topic that they really love. Go, if they show an interest in history, buy the Patriot movie, get into it on their terms, because that's the beauty of homeschooling. I happen to have gone to Virginia Tech and gotten a degree from there. My degree is in human resources and a degree in family and child development. And I did that because I figured I really wanted to go into family. I knew I wanted a family, and HR to me was where you made the money, and I wanted both. So that's what I did. To be honest with you, my oldest is not going to college. My next 2 are, or either in college or will start next year. And I'm not really, to be an entrepreneur, it's not about your educational path. It's not about higher education or formal education. It's about your view on education, right? And so to me, it's you become curious about something and go deep into that. And don't allow, if you don't want to go to college or that stresses you out, that's totally fine, right? It's really about learning what you need to learn about how to sell what you want to make money selling, right? A lot of times we say, well, I want to be an accountant. Well, you have to go to school to be an accountant. Let me pick another one. Like I want to be, you know, in HR, right? And the truth is, like, you don't need a human resources degree to have an HR business and succeed. You just have to know how to sell HR services, right? So for the entrepreneur, like read, and don't just read contemporary stuff. Like don't just read the fancy, shiny entrepreneurs who are fancy and shiny today. Read the old timers, right? Like read the grizzled veterans. I've been doing this for 20 years and I still have the same mentors if they're alive, right? Because they know what works, and the principles of what works to build a business do not change. I don't care about your social media platforms. I don't care what everybody says is new. The principles to grow your business do not change. And so I would recommend reading the business greats like Dan Kennedy. Dan S. Kennedy, he's got a ton of books. There's Gary Halbert, no longer with us, but he's an amazing copywriter. So study him, study Brian Tracy, like read from people who have been doing this a while and are still succeeding, right? Be cautious of the people who shoot to fame really fast, right? I've been at this a while. I've seen them shoot up, fall down, go into the telephone booth, change really fast, and come back out some new brand. And it's like, you want to see people who have been doing this, who have longevity, who understand the principles of success. And if you do that, then your degrees don't matter, right? Like I have my degree hanging on my wall, like right, on the other side of this wall. Honestly, I never used it. I'm happy to pay for my kids' college if they want that, but I never used it. The college experience for me, frankly, the biggest part was that my parents didn't pay. They weren't really into it. And so I had to pay it myself. I worked full time. I went to school full time, and I hustled like I'd never hustled before. And I learned to manage time and manage people. I learned to negotiate with my professors, because my thing was school came pretty easy for me. I didn't want to attend class. And frankly, I'd rather work and make money. So I'd negotiate with them. If I get this, will you not hold my attendance against me? If I can do that, right? So I learned all those things. It was the getting my degree that allowed me to apply that to my entrepreneurial endeavors. But that's only because I was on my own, and I left home at 17. So it was like I was on my own for the first time, and I learned a lot in that experience. So my marriage is probably my top priority, actually, and that is a choice. I'll be very honest with you. My husband makes it easy. If I had a picture of him right here, I'd show it, and you say, "Oh, that's how you stay focused on that man," right? He's amazing. But we've gone through really hard times, also. My husband, and we've been very blatant about this, but. He went through depression for a few years, and my personality, like to live with somebody depressed, it was like living under a dark cloud for years. I mean, I just almost felt like I was, treading water, like just trying to keep my head above water emotionally, because it was it was a real hard time in our marriage. And also at that time, my business was skyrocketing. He's a public school teacher and was feeling kind of stuck. And so we had a lot of things that we had to work through. But I think that the biggest thing is, like, marriage is not unlike anything else, right? Like, you're either in or out. I was in it till death do we part. Like, that was it. Now, for me, it's like I don't believe every marriage should end in death, right? Like I believe that, if you're being abused or, something like that, definitely don't take this and think I got to stay. Like, no way. But I also believe there's no real honor in staying in a marriage that is awful, right? Like you've got to be in it for the person that you're with. And you want to really focus on the friendship, right? So my husband have a very passionate relationship, and that's my favorite part, to be honest with you. But in the hard times, like, we had to focus on the friendship. We had to focus on seeing the other person and listening to the other person and treating them the way we want to be treated. All the basic, like, kindergarten stuff. But our emotions get involved, and it can be very difficult. But my marriage has always been something that I want to have as a legacy for my kids. I have zero interest in just staying married, like having some mediocre marriage and then celebrating like, yeah, but we made it. No way. Like, he's my best friend. When I pull in the driveway and the kids are, now two of the kids are gone most of the time, and the other one will leave next year. But, when I pull in, it's just his car. I'm excited, right? Like, I'm excited to be with my best friend. And right now he's a teacher, so he's home. right? So he's been home for like 6 weeks, and he's home every summer. And that's always an adjustment, right? But we just focus really on the friendship and learn new levels of loving each other, all the time. So a few of the lies that I can just like rattle off, one is that it takes money to make money, right? I built this empire with a $50 investment. The other is you got to get your name out there. That's a fool's game. Don't worry about getting your name out there. Who do you need to come in here, right? Like whether it's in your store, on your website, in your office, like focus on getting your ideal clients to you, right? That's a direct response. Then getting your name out there is like Nike advertising, right? It's like we don't have Nike's budget. We can't afford to just do an awareness campaign. We need people to come in and buy something, right? So those are two of the lies. One of the big business lies is that you don't turn a profit, right? For like years, the first couple years you don't make money. Well, gosh, I would love to find, somebody who can manage my money to the effect that I can't not get money for years, right? Like this is just not the way the real world works. And so the lies are out there very, very prevalent. Or you got to network, right? You got to network. The more people that know your name. I've never done that. And so for you, if you are thinking about being in business, or you are in business and it is not going according to plan, right? Like you're good at what you do and like you sell some, but it's just not hitting. You've got to consider how many things are you doing that are according to the norm in business, right? Like how many things are you doing that are according to what everybody else is doing in business? Because let me tell you something, 4 out of 5 businesses fail. And my philosophy is that those 4 businesses are like following each other. They're giving each other advice, right? They're listening to the same people and they're doing the same things. And so if you don't know what to do to shift your business, look at what everybody else in your industry is doing and don't do that, right? Like do something else. And so you want to make sure that most of the things that we take for granted as true in business are leading to an 80% failure rate. They're worthy of being questioned, right? So there's tons of business lies out there. The principles of success are the principles that work no matter who applies them, where they're applied, or when they're applied. That's a principle that's true all the time, right? So in other words, the things that grow my business also grow my friendships, grow my marriage, grow my fitness, right? So here are some principles that work in business. One is relationship, right? Like your people have got to know that they are more than a paycheck or a cha-ching to you. That does not mean you work for free. I never advise working for free, ever. But it means that you see them beyond the paycheck. So relationship, daily habits, right? Your business is not going to be built on what you do one day. Your business is going to be built on what you do every single day, right? You look at anybody who is successful in whatever area you're looking at. They have the body you want, the marriage you want, whatever, right? You look at that and you're like, hey, what do they do every day to create that? There's something that is normal and customary in their actions that lead to that result. Another principle of business is cause and effect, right? Like we live in a cause and effect world. Your goals are the effect you want. So you've got to be the cause. You got to be willing to say what actions would naturally lead to this goal that I have, right? You've got to keep it simple. You've got to make sure that you are acknowledging you live in a cause and effect world. And then the last principle I'll talk about now, because I don't want to go on forever, is measurement, right? Like Weight Watchers is not, they don't have like some super fancy, amazing diet that leaves you not hungry and tastes like chocolate cake all the time. They have a scale and they expect you to step on it every week. And that's why Weight Watchers works. Their magic sauce is the scale. And in business, particularly women entrepreneurs, we don't like to measure like leads, right? We'll measure like likes or impressions as if that matters, right? Like, try calling your mortgage and, company and saying like, I don't have the money today, but what I do have are 1,237 likes, right? Like they don't care. And so you've got to start measuring the things that matter to you, right? So it is, leads. How many people are asking for you? I'm asking for your whatever you're selling. Sales conversations. How many do you have on the books? Hardly anything sells without conversations. So schedule some conversations. Dollars. How much money did you make? There's only 52 weeks in a year. You can't afford too many weeks where you're not putting something in the money earned category, right? Like, I'm just a realist here. I'm trying to be pragmatic. And so the principles of relationship and measurement and daily habits, like in cause and effect, these are the things that make businesses profitable and successful and scalable.
Thank you for watching The Sarah Scoop Show. Head to sarahscoop.com for more.